be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs, and we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Welcome back to Legendary Foods Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Thursday, August 26th, 2021. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. Full disclosure, at this point in my life, I'm not a big drinker. But I will tell you what, if I was, I think I'd be having a double shot of whatever Hunter Lebron is throwing down on every night that ends in Y. According to Hunter, right now his focus is at an all-time high. His training is clicking, and he is happy with the changes that he's seeing in his body on a daily basis. Even for someone with such a small sample size at the pro level, if there's one thing we've learned about Hunter so far, it's that he seems to have his process dialed down to a science. So if he says that he's on track to be his all-time best when he steps on stage 7 weeks from now, he's probably right. And if you're someone trying to fight for a spot in the top 5, that's a scary thought. Speaking of scary thoughts, have you seen these videos of Nathanasha and Sampson training together last week? Nathan was fresh off his huge win at the Europa Championships, and at that point, Sampson was 6 weeks out from making his season debut at the Arnold UK. And from the way it looks, these two are both giving each other a run for the money. I'd imagine that motivation to make these last few weeks count has to be at an all-time high for both of them. Right now, considering the fact that Nathan is trying to make a statement in his first trip back to the Olympia stage in nearly 2 years. And Sampson is trying to make it there for the first time by hopefully winning the Arnold UK. I know we've said this a million times, but bodybuilding really does feel like a game of inches sometimes. And if joining forces with another real-life superhero brings you one step closer to the promised land, then I say these two are definitely on the right path. We've talked about the Arnold Classic a lot over the last few weeks, and we even touched on some of the storylines about what it would mean for the defending champions to come back and defend their titles in their respective divisions. But if you're excited to see what this year's Arnold Classic physique lineup will look like and what some of the implications from that show are, then this new update from Brian Jones should really get you going. A few days ago, Brian released a new update on his Instagram with the caption, "It's on," which might have been the perfect way to put it considering how he looked in those photos. This guy has all the tools to be a legitimate title contender in Columbus, so if he can come up and really nail it, he's going to give Alex Cabronero and Terrence Ruffin just about all they can handle. And since we're already talking about wildcards at the Arnold Classic, I figured that we might as well end the show with this update from Sung Chul Lee, who's a little less than 6 weeks away from making his debut on one of the biggest stages in bodybuilding. A few weeks ago, Chul landed stateside to finish out his last few weeks of his prep for the Arnold and the Olympia out in Las Vegas, where he's been training with Flex Lewis and his whole crew out there at the new Dragon's Lair gym. Out of all the athletes in the men's open this year, Chul is probably the biggest question mark because we just don't have a big sample size to go on. Granted, he did finish 12th at the Olympia last year, but other than that, he's pretty much an enigma to most people who aren't plugged into the international bodybuilding scene. That said, the guy's obviously got some talent if he's coming in as the 12th ranked bodybuilder on the planet. So depending on how things shape up, I don't think a 5th or 6th place finish is completely out of the question. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs, and we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Welcome back to Legendary Foods Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Friday, August 27th, 2021. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. We have a lot of major events coming up on the calendar over the next few weeks that we've talked about a lot recently. But because the schedule doesn't end after October, and there's still a lot of action scheduled for that post-Olympia window, including a huge event at the Legion Sports Fest, I figured we might as well take a minute to check in on our buddy Stan DeLonghu. Right now, Stan's 9 weeks out from making his debut in the open class at the Legion, and all reports we hear coming out of his home base in Las Vegas seem to be pointing towards us seeing the most complete version of Stan that we've ever seen. Now that he isn't sacrificing size to make the weight limit for Classic, he's had the chance to actually train and allow his body to do what it wants to do for the first time in years. So if he can find a way to bring in the lines and symmetry he had in Classic and mesh that with the new size he put on, I don't see him having any problems making a successful transition. One of the common themes that we've seen in team sports over the last decade is the great athletes needing to be surrounded by great coaches to help them win at the highest level. And for the most part, that same thing has been true in bodybuilding too. So when you see an elite athlete like Sergio Oliva link up with an elite coach like Dennis James, no matter which way you look at it, it seems like one of those things that has the winning combination written all over it. Over the last week or so, Sergio and DJ have been starting to release videos from their training sessions as DJ helps Sergio to prepare to get himself ready for the Arnold Classic, which is just over a month away now. Considering DJ's recent track record for turning guys from good to great, it does make you wonder whether or not Sergio could be on the verge of pulling off something really special. And if they can treat the Arnold like an appetizer and bring out something spicy, then there's no telling what they may cook up for an entree for the Olympia a few weeks later. A few days ago, I was exchanging emails with someone who asked me who I saw as the favorite for the Wellness Olympia title this year. And if I'm being completely honest, the answer is that, well, I'm not sure. But I will say this, if you saw the new progress photos that Angela Borges released a few days ago, it makes it awfully hard not to put her near the top of your list. With wellness being so new and people not really having much of a chance to see these athletes compete all that often, it does make it hard to pull all the pieces together. But considering the fact that we've already seen her beat out some of the other athletes who we've talked about as potential title contenders, it does give her a leg up in that sense. So if she shows up looking like the world beater that we saw earlier in the season, I'm not sure if anyone else in that lineup has enough firepower to slow her down. Usually when you describe someone as different, there are negative connotations to it because there's something about them being just a little bit off. But for George Peterson, I think being described as different is almost like a badge of honor because he isn't out there doing what he's doing day in and day out so that he can be average. Throughout the entire offseason, all we heard from people close to George was how diligent he was with everything down to the smallest detail. And I think now is the point in his prep where we really start to see all the diligence pay off. We're expecting to see a different version of George when he steps onto that Olympia stage this year. And if he's the right kind of different, there's a very good chance that he ends up getting the result he was looking for. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.